Okay. Welcome everyone to an Unlocking Fun and Epic Battle Simulator 2. Today we're going to go over all the mini strategies that I see basically all the time. This is the strategy I see all the time. Just a line of musketeers in the back. A long line of musketeers for online. And there are a lot of variations to this strategy. Some people put musketeers just in one corner, or a big fat area in the middle, or they use any of the ranged troops like the crossbowmen, the archers, or the AK-47s and the M16s, or they even do ninjas, or pirates, or mages, or even a mage tower. And if they've already paid for it, you even do sentinels. And I'll go ahead and show you guys why the strategy is so vulnerable, and I'll give you some pointers, some tips on how to make it better. See, it starts off well. You're killing a lot of troops, but once my troops close the distance, it's hard for your musketeers to do much damage. Most of the damage they're doing is through piercing. Their bullets pierce through all the troops. So they'll hit a spearman, pierce through, and kill my crossbowmen. So let's go ahead and show you just how vulnerable the strategy is by bringing it up to 120. And now, this strategy, with 120 musketeers, will be able to defeat one of my strategies, this strategy here. But, all I need to do to defend myself against it now is add some spearmen. So I had 15 spearmen. I have 5,900 points, and the online game only does 5,000 points, but this musketeer strategy has 12,000 points. Let's see how they do. Now the main problem here is that you have nothing to back up your musketeers. Nothing at all. You need something to help them out. And not anything. Not anything's going to work. Not just anything. I'll tell you what won't work first. So first of all, what won't work for improving your ranged troop strategies is more ranged troops. Or different ranged troops. So obviously more ranged troops didn't help. It lost. I only have 90 troops, 5,900 points, and you have 120 musketeers, 12,000 points, and this strategy lost. So let's clear the board, and I'll just point out some good strategy, some good troops to aid this strategy. So you got your musketeers. Some good troops would be spearmen. In the ratio testing, I tested spearmen against all the other melee troops, all of these guys, even a bear, an elephant, even the giants, and even Spartans, samurais, and guardians. And in the ratio testing, the best troop for your price was always the spearmen. So go ahead and lay down some spearmen. As I already said, you don't want any more ranged troops. If you want to change the ranged troops from musketeers to crossbowmen or archers, go ahead. Do not use AK-47s or M16s. These are not good troops because they have such low range. You might also want to consider adding some cavalry. Now the trick with the cavalry here, I know it's 120 points, and that is not an even 100. Most people will not touch that because it's just not an even 100 number. But what you do is it's rules of 5. So you can put down 5 of each, or what else? What you could also do is do like 3 camels and 2. Here, let's clear it a bit. 3 camels and 2 knights to aid your musketeers. And then moving on to heavies. Heavies are not a good thing for a strategy, pretty much at all. The only 2 good ones, if you are lucky enough, are the organ gun and the ballista, because they have a good piercing damage. The cannon fires way too slow. As you can see, it fires almost half as much as the ballista, and the organ gun just fires like 5 to 6 times more often than the cannon. The catapult doesn't do any piercing because it goes up at an angle, so it might hit a troop and then roll into another troop, but it won't get a whole line of troops. The Hwacha is the worst troop there is. Yes, it does do a good amount of damage with a good reload time, and has a fairly good range, but the arch is so insane, and it hits the same spot so consistently that it is pretty much unusable, because any troop that moves quickly, any troop that's not a giant or a guardian or any other heavies, can easily get away from a Hwacha and defeat it. It has a very low amount of health, so all it takes for a spearman is a couple seconds to destroy it. Every second it's doing about 30 damage. And the Hwacha only has 125 health. So 5 seconds with one spearman, it could be gone. And this attack time doesn't really calculate to how often it actually shoots, because it shoots a giant load all at once and then takes a moment to reload. Now over here, of course, you can replace your musketeer troops with ninjas or pirates. And you can even have bombs be your backup. I don't recommend it. It's not a great strategy because it's a one-time use thing and they might not even hit their target. Sure, you could set it up where you have a bunch of spearmen to escort your bomb to its target, but there's no guarantee, because I might, or other people might have cavalry that distract your spearmen and ranged troops that shoot your bombs and make them miss completely. So I do not condone bombs. I do not advise using bombs. You could also use mages instead of musketeers, but they cost twice as much, and they don't have a good amount of range. Obviously, you don't want to use giants because they're slow, and in the ratio testing, they're probably one of the worst melee troops to use. Obviously, you don't want to use a mage tower for any troops. You don't want to use it to back up musketeers. You don't want it to be replacing your musketeers because they don't move. Sure, they might do a lot of damage, but if your enemy has musketeers, your mage tower will not be able to touch them because the mage tower only has 40 range, whereas the musketeers have 50 range. And if you have enough bunts, if you completed all of the levels and the epic levels, and you've bought some of these epics, you can back up your musketeers with Spartans or samurais, or you can even replace them with sentinels or minigunners. And actually, one of the strategies I stole from somebody just to test was 2 dragons, one on the bottom, one near the middle, and musketeers like that to equal 5,000. That's a pretty good strategy right there, and it's very simple. And you can modify a strategy like that, where if you only bought the wolf so far, you can have the wolf up here, and a wolf back here with your musketeers, and have a similar setup to the dragons. Or you can even set up 2 guardians up here. Since they're slow, you want to put them as close to the line as possible. Because if you set one back here, hold on, right back here, they are vulnerable for a long time from ranged troops. Because they are so slow. Look. If you have rhino troops, that'd be a good distraction. You can set it back here, or you could set it up here. You know? So there are a lot of different things that you could do with the musketeers. Honestly, the best thing that I would recommend would be to set out a specific number. I can use 5s, so do maybe 15 spearmen, something like that, and do 3 camels, 2 knights, and then finish off and get to 5,000 with your musketeers here in the back. And you can do any variation to that you want. You can even go ahead and use the shields or the knights or the axes. They're all actually pretty good for countering spearmen. It just depends on how many you use. And you can do any amount of melee troops that you want. You don't even have to use cavalry. One of the strategies I use is I do just a line of spearmen and a line of axes, and then I even it out so that I can go to my range troops and get 5,000 with crossbowmen. You don't even need cavalry. I have one too many troops there. Let's see how this does. Now see, the melee troops and the red team are not moving, and they're not advancing towards the musketeers yet. They had people to fight. Now, the Musketeers are going to lose anyways, because they're just more crossbowmen, and the crossbowmen are fast on their feet. So, in the ratio testing, crossbow are one of the best to use. So, to improve your Musketeer strategy, use melee troops. Maybe you can use some cavalry troops, but only use camels and knights. Don't go with bears. I mean, you could use bears as melee troops, but remember, spears, axes, guards, and shields can beat bears. And they can beat war elephants too. And chariots, they're okay, but again, they just cost a lot. So if you want to use cavalry, just use the camels and the knights. If you don't want to use any cavalry, try and stick with the lower numbers and do groups of 5. So 5 spearmen and 5 axes. You can even do 5 gladiators. But of course, if you're using the guards or shields, you don't have to use groups of 5 because they're an even 100. So just set it up how you want to set it up. I know everybody wants to have their own strategy. Nobody has ever copied my strategies after I set them up. I like to set my strategies up early online to see what people do to counter my strategy. And nobody's ever just straight up copied my strategy. So I understand that people want to have their own strategies. So take my tips here and apply them to your strategy. Go to custom games, find out what works for you, and I'll see you online. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching this Unlocking Fun. Goodbye.